We're getting feedback, but
Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Nancy Vandell, chairperson for the NCAC Bylaws Subcommittee, and I welcome you to our information session this morning to be held just before the main meeting to actually adopt these proposals we're going to talk about. I'd like to introduce our subcommittee members who are here. Wyatt Angelo and Tom Sipe is our illustrious editor. Michael Beachley is our NCAC parliamentarian and member of our committee as well. And Susan Schaumburg is the other member of our committee, and she's now on her way flying in from, I think, Hawaii or LA, in which she'll be joining us more in the main meeting. But welcome. We're going to just get started with a presentation to talk about the bylaws amendments and the amended policies, procedures, and references. And to give you just a little quick background, 2 years ago, we completely rewrote the bylaws and got those approved. Those approved bylaws are on the main page of the NCAC website. Last year, we took on writing a brand new document called the Policies, Procedures, and References. And that approved document is also on the main page of the NCAC website. This year, we went through and worked on parts of the PP&R, which we call the Policies, Procedures, and References, that we didn't have time to get to last year, as well as we just noticed some things. So there's some more changes than we had really anticipated at the beginning of the year. And so that's being presented as an overall document. When you look at the documents that are in the meeting folder, it includes the two different documents for bylaws. One is the new redlined, they call it, bylaws that show the changes as they appear in the bylaws. And the other is a list of the proposed amendments. The bylaws are the overarching document for the NCAC. The policies, procedures, and references are kind of a policy manual on how you get things done for more detail to help the officers and the members on how we actually do things. So they're two different documents, each important, but the bylaws take over the PP&R.
one thing I'd like to add, Nancy,
Yes.
that Ann and I were talking this morning about it, and people may not realize that the bylaws and the PP&R are the way that we interact so that we can form things to communicate to the county. It does not set county policy. That's another
Yes.
document.
Right. The good point. So yes, and we are, as an organization, you'll see in the Article 1 and 2 of the bylaws, we are an arm of the county. We are subject to Oregon public meeting law. And so that's why we record everything, and all of our documents are on the website. You can find all of our old documents under the archives. And each meeting we have the documents available for you to look at. So yeah, thank you, Tom. I'm going to go ahead and go into the presentation. We did just notice that there is a closed captioning option. If you ever want to exercise it in June in Zoom, you can go in individually and turn on closed captions. Okay, so I'm not going to run the slideshow. I'm just going to go through. So basically, we only have about 40 minutes before the meeting starts, so we're going to run through this pretty quickly. There'll be time for you to ask questions, but this is the schedule that we've been working on for adoption. We've had a number of feedback sessions. We've incorporated input that we've received from our members, both in the feedback sessions and independently through emails and different reviews. At the same time, Tillamook County is reviewing all of this. Sarah Absher is the Director of Community Development, and everything has to pass by Tillamook County and the attorneys. So today is our main day to get all of this approved. So we already pretty much went through bylaws, PP&R, but as you go through, when we get to the PP&R part, and this is all from Tom's site, but we've decided I'm just going to present today to make it quick, rather than go between different ones of us. Policies are directive statements of guidelines for actions. They're the most important part of the PP&R. Procedures are instructive statements. to facilitate the operation of the NCAC. So how do you actually get business done? And the references are more things that can be more easily changed. We'll go through what they include a little bit later. But for today, we have three main bylaws amendments. One regarding recording of minutes, one regarding leaves of absence, and then one that's really two involving voting. So we're going to go through those first because bylaws are always important. When we get into the meeting, it'll be a 2/3 majority vote to approve any bylaws changes. So the first amendment is regarding secretary duties. And really what we're doing here is under the duties of the secretary, the first one is that they record the minutes. We feel like we need to have a little more flexibility. As you may know, we have been without a secretary now since the end of June. And so we feel like if the secretary has the ability to delegate the recording of minutes, but still retaining the need to supervise, make sure that they're accurate and that they are taken, that will not stop operations and may enhance some flexibility. So basically what we're suggesting, can everybody read this okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is that we change the first duty of the secretary to record minutes or ensure that minutes are recorded accurately of membership and executive board meetings. So just a little background on this, all of our meetings are recorded and are on YouTube and are put on YouTube. So they're the main record, but the minutes are there to make sure we have the names of the attendees, the start time, stop sign time, any motions, and then list of briefly the topics so that if someone is interested in going to the recording, they'll know that there's something to talk that they might be interested in going to. So, any questions about the recording of minutes? It's pretty simple. Okay, the second one is that we realized when our chairperson, Mark Everett, considered he had to resign for family reasons. And he thought about briefly taking a leave of absence. We realized we had nothing in the bylaws that provided for taking a leave of absence, and we would have made that work, but he had ultimately needed to resign and step away. But this amendment adds to Article 4, Section E of the bylaws, vacancies, that an officer may take a temporary leave of absence for up to 6 months for any reason, with as much notice to the executive board as feasible. Duties shall be handled as a vacancy as described below in the document you don't have. The document is in the meeting folder that talks about how do you handle a vacancy. Subcommittee chairs may also take a leave of absence for up to 6 months, and duties should be handled by the subcommittee members as they see fit. The executive board shall determine whether an extension is appropriate. So is there any question about that? Okay, and then we get into voting. So when we first did the bylaws, we pretty much captured what was in the bylaws before, which were more set for when people are meeting in person. But the bylaws state that right now that you need to either do a Zoom poll or a roll call vote whenever you have a motion or any kind of a decision, and that can take a lot of time. What we're finding in our meetings is that in most cases, it's all unanimous. It can be just a quick voice vote or show of hands. So we're recommending that we add that capability to our bylaws. So that's the first item, so that you can allow a voice vote or hand count to be added as options. I'm going to go through that in a moment. The second one is that roll call voting, which is when somebody wants to hear each person state their name and state their vote individually. That right now there's a requirement in the bylaws that they have a motion that has to be approved to do that, because it does take more time. But Robert's Rules of Order, as Michael pointed out to us, really doesn't require that. It says if anybody wants to have a roll call vote, they should just be able to call for that in a timely manner, just before or just after a vote. And we feel like we should be consistent with Robert's Rules of Order. So those are the two different voting things that we're going to go through now. And I just went through the background. So this is what Amendment 3 looks like in paragraph 1 of Article 5. The current wording, we're talking about lining out those attending video conferencing shall register their vote via electronic polling or roll call vote, and changing that to without objection, the chair shall determine the form of voting. Normally and by default, voting shall be conducted by electronic polling. However, motions appearing to have general support may otherwise be decided by a voice vote or by a virtual show of hands. The PP&R provides detailed procedures in Procedure 4. Members attending a hybrid meeting in person may vote by a show of hands or paper ballot. So if you look, we'll get to that in the PP&R, but if you look in that section, we have detailed instructions that a meeting chair should be able to tell if there's disagreement in the room. And in that case, you don't go to a voice vote. But if it's what is typical, everybody generally agrees, then we have that. So it turns out with Zoom, Zoom only has one microphone going at a time, so it's hard to tell. But if there are any no votes, when the chair asks for any no's, if there are any of them, then we don't do a voice vote. That way, we'll go to either a hand count or a Zoom poll or one of the other options. So that's in there as a safeguard. For the roll call voting, we're just proposing that we change that to remove the requirement for a motion to be passed. So the proposed wording is a call for a roll call vote, which is technically called a division of the House, shall be made by any member, may be made only before or immediately following the vote on an issue. It must be acted upon immediately, with exceptions noted in Robert's Rules of Order. The vote will be held with each member declaring their name, membership qualifications, followed by the vote. Each declaration shall be recorded and made part of the permanent record. So that's it for the voting. We feel like the amended wording protects the right of members to have their individual votes counted while saving time when the outcome is unanimous. So are there any questions about any of the bylaws amendments or comments? Okay, so we're going to move right on to policies, procedures, and references. I just have to commend the whole committee and particularly Tom Sipe for all of his work on this document. He is our illustrious editor. He went through and reorganized the document. So in some cases, items that were procedures have become policies. Some that were policies became procedures or even down into references. We feel like it's a much more logical document than when we came up with it last year. So those are all kind of editorial, non-content kinds of changes, but we're going through that. We have a new introduction that Wyatt suggested to talk about how the document should be used. It's a pretty complex document. And so at the beginning, there's a section on how it should be used. When you're looking at the document itself, you'll see green. And the green is all the new wording that we have that's not just strictly editorial. So you'll see a lot of green in different places. And that's where we have either new policies, new procedures, or something that's significantly modified. Today, for the presentation, we're just going to talk about the ones that are new or significantly modified. So with policies, we'll spend a little more time on those. Those are the most important. Procedures, we'll just briefly review. And references will show the topics, but we'll just review upon request. So these are all of our policies. The ones in purple are the ones that are new or significantly modified. So all of the others were largely, they were all passed last year. We've been using them. So grant applications and fundraising, we've added a fundraising paragraph to that. Chris Sokowski pointed out we didn't have one, so we added one, thanks to Tom. Meeting notices and documents, we've changed a little bit, mainly regarding agendas and that kind of thing. a little bit of change to the request to the NCAC that we'll go through. And then we have a whole new section, policy on reconsiderations and rescissions of decisions, that Sarah Absher from the county asked us to put in. And then a big one on Oregon public meeting law considerations, because that's a complex law that we're all having to follow. And so we have a new policy there. Into the procedures topics, these are our procedures, and we have some new or heavily modified ones. Meeting minutes is one, motions and voting, and that really goes into what we just talked about with the bylaws. Applications for NCAC positions, we didn't have a section on that. What do you do if you are interested in becoming an officer or a committee member or whatever? How do you apply? What should be included? And then quorum is new. What do you do if the quorum's not met? And then these are our references topics. And so references include contact information, current version of Robert's Rules of Order that we use. The NCAC area reference map has not changed. There's a brand new, the Neighbors of Neskowin map that Tom and the community plan group have come up with. It's really pretty cool, showing our neighborhoods. And then NCAC job descriptions have been fleshed out considerably. Task forces have been moved into references and fleshed out. Current ad hoc subcommittees and conflict of interest resources. So those are kind of the broad table of contents. Any questions on what constitutes these different items? Okay, so and if you have trouble turning on your microphone or whatever, you are welcome to go into the chat and ask a question as well. Grant applications and fundraising. As I mentioned, we just added the paragraph on fundraising. So we're really restricted by the county. We're not allowed to do a lot of fundraising. We're supposed to be funded by the county. However, they don't have the funds right now to do it. So they're sort of reluctantly allowing us to raise money just for our expenses. We have a pretty low budget. It's mainly to use our web tools and our email blasts, our Google Drive, that kind of thing. So under $2,000 a year, but we do need to be able to raise money for that. Meeting notices and documents. Originally, or currently, the policies and procedures imply that a agenda needs to be provided at the time of a meeting notice. So the bylaws prescribe that you have to have a meeting notice within at least 14 days prior to a membership meeting, at least 7 days prior to a subcommittee or executive board meeting, and the agenda should be in there. And the people have thought they couldn't change the agenda, but that isn't true. The agenda can be changed. It should be provided at the beginning, but it's changeable even up to a meeting, unless it's a special meeting or an urgent meeting. So this just clarifies that the agenda can be changed. I'm not going to go through the exact wording, but that's basically it. That follows Robert's Rules of Order and clarifies and reclarifies that. So any questions about that? The only thing is with special meetings and urgent meetings, the agenda is set. So like today's meeting is a special membership meeting, so we cannot we cannot add something to the agenda for today's meeting that's not currently there, which is the approval of the bylaws amendments and the amended PP&R. Request to the NCAC. It was a procedure 12, or currently is a procedure. It's been moved by Tom to a policy, and so it's been reformatted also. It had a number of many levels of kind of bullet points, and Tom has made it into English. And then also we've added something on fundraising again as well, about as an official advisory body to Tillamook County, the NCAC is not allowed to have any financial dealings except as specifically permitted by the Tillamook County Department of Community Development, that operating expenses are allowed. So we have been asked a few times to actually coordinate some fundraising or provide some fundraising for other groups, and we've just been told no, we can't do that. New policy on reconsiderations and rescissions. So those are two different ways of changing decisions that are made in a meeting. If a decision is made within a meeting or very shortly after, then that would be a reconsideration. Someone might make a motion to reconsider a previous decision, and there are rules around how you do that. But you can also do a rescission at a future meeting. It could be like a year later. And so that's where Sarah was asking us to have some policy. And so all of this is new. It's the full text, and it's basically saying that a vote to reconsider only requires a majority vote to pass, should be done in the same meeting that the decision was made. Any action passed by the NCAC membership may be rescinded at any future meeting with certain exceptions. A vote to rescind requires a 2/3 vote to pass. The effect of the vote to rescind cancels the previous action. Such rescission is not permitted if the county has taken action on the matter. And any proposed rescission shall be placed on the agenda with proper notice. More information about it can be found in Robert's Rules of Order. The current version is in the references. And Chapter 37, and motions to rescind may be found in Chapter 35.
I think that might bear a little bit of clarification as to why we got so in the weeds on this one. There was an unfortunate instance in another CAC, and this is just to prevent that sort of, it's nothing we did.
Right. Thank you, Tom. Not our fault, but it's good. It's good to be prepared. So yes, yeah. And that situation was one where building codes were involved that had come out of that, and it has been a mess. So, okay. So Oregon Public Meeting Law considerations is brand new. A lot of time has been spent on this. Wyatt and Tom Prahodich and Tom Sipe have done a lot of work on this. It's very detailed, and probably more detailed than you need. And I'm seeing a chat. Harvey Rubenstein, under certain, our motion for reconsideration must be made by the member who voted in favor of. Yes, you're right, Harvey. So there are parliamentary procedures around votes to reconsider, and we're not going into those details in the policy, but Robert's Rules of Order says that only a member who voted in favor of the motion that got passed may put in a motion to reconsider. Absolutely, Harvey. Thank you. I think we have another possible parliamentarian here. Yes, you are correct. So somebody who just doesn't like the vote and they voted against it and it got passed cannot make a motion to reconsider. Absolutely. Thank you. So anyway, there's a lot of detail in here about Oregon Public Meeting Law.
Nancy? Who brought that to our attention?
That was Harvey Rubenstein.
Oh, well, good, Harvey. Good for you.
Michael appreciates that.
Yeah, that's a good
one. Yeah, I don't know if we want to add that in or not. We do operate under Robert's rules, but maybe we should think about adding that in as editorial change, Tom. So OPML considerations. So this is very detailed. I'm not going to go through it all, but it basically is telling us what we have to do. I mean, and there are penalties on this. This is serious stuff. And it also tells us what we can do that is not covered by OPML. So originally we thought we couldn't even have emails back and forth to schedule something. And it turns out, no, that's an exemption under Oregon Public Meeting Law. So this is going through a lot of information about what we can do and what we can't do. If anyone is interested, we could go through all of this, but I do want to just, it's in here, and if it's okay, I think we'll just move on. It's up to you all. Okay, so lots of detail. If you have any questions about any of this, please speak up. But we had 2 lawyers involved, and the Oregon Ethics Commission. A lot of this information is from the Oregon Ethics Commission, and so mainly for the the executive board to make sure we're running legally. So that's it for policies. Are there any questions about any of the policies that we've gone over before we go into the procedures? Okay. So the first procedure we're talking about is the minutes, and it kind of ties back in with the bylaws that we include in here that, well, I guess it's actually under the job description of the secretary that they can appoint somebody to take the minutes. But we also added in about the use of artificial intelligence to draft minutes and the need to carefully review and edit if you use them. So like I've turned on the Zoom AI recording this meeting, and it's gotten better over the last couple of years, but it's still problematic. And so it's a useful tool, but you have to be really, really careful still. And so whoever is responsible for taking the minutes if they use that tool, needs to be really careful. It also doesn't include the final, when the meeting started and stopped time-wise. There's like more of a elapsed time kind of thing, and it doesn't include necessarily the attendees. So we've added that. For motions and voting, you'll notice for the procedures, I don't have the full text like we did for the policies, but you can refer to the actual PP&R. For motions and voting, we've gone back to where we had the bylaws amendments. And so we now provide detailed directions on procedure 4 for the chair on how to handle basic motions and when to pick one voting option over another. And it might be serial. You start with voice, you go to a raised hand, and raised hand can be difficult if it's a big group, or if you go to a Zoom poll. Today, we're going to be using Zoom polls for these motions that we have when we get to the meeting, or if you have a roll call vote. And then we have a new procedure on applications for the NCAC, and basically saying what should be provided. So how you are eligible, what kind of a member you are. Are you a resident? Are you a property owner, or are you a business owner? What to include in the applications? What is your background? Why are you qualified? Why do you want to go? How to submit why are you interested in the position, and how to submit the applications? And then training requirements once you are elected. And that's for officer, subcommittee, and task force positions. Task force members are not elected, they're appointed by the executive board, but for officer and subcommittee positions. Okay, and then quorum's a new procedure that talks about what happens if a meeting quorum is not met, and reiterates that we cannot meet and make any decisions without a quorum. A quorum is defined in the bylaws as 15 members for a membership meeting, and it depends on, for an executive board and subcommittee meeting, it's the majority of the members of that committee, subcommittee, or executive board. So, and it says you can't conduct any business, but you can work really hard to go off and find people to come into your meeting so you can still run the meeting. And also you try to get enough people when you start. Are there any questions about any of these procedures that we've covered? We will look at the whole document here shortly too, but okay. References, the newer expanded topics are the neighborhoods of Nesco and MAP, the NCAC job descriptions, and the task force descriptions. So one of the policies, I believe it's policy in the document, is how the PP&R can be changed. And the policies and the procedures need to be presented to the membership for approval. The policies in particular need to be sent out to the membership ahead of time, with proper notice. and there needs to be a vote of the membership. The references can be changed by the executive board. If it's a unanimous vote to change a reference, then it's reported out at the next membership meeting. If it's not a unanimous decision by the executive board, then it will be presented to the membership. And that's just because they tend to be things that are that need to be easily changed. So are there any questions in general over any of this? Because if not, we're going to go to the PP&R document directly. Okay. Oh, Susan, you made it. Hi. I think I don't see a new thing there. Okay, so I had mentioned to everybody that you were flying in. Susan is a purser for Delta, and she comes in at 4 a.m. sometimes to our meetings, but she makes our meetings unless she's actually in the air. So she's amazing. Okay, so here's the latest version of the actual document. And as you can see, a brand new description. As I mentioned, everything in green is new. And this talks about how you use it, how it's related to the bylaws, etc. So table of contents. So Tom has this so that you can click on any of these and go directly to that policy, procedure, or reference. So everything in black has not been changed, other than maybe a capitalization here or there, or a comma or whatever.
And we did rearrange some of the sections.
Yes.
Things that turned out to be informational as opposed to policy. They were put in the right place, at least in my opinion.
Yes.
Opinions
definitely.
vary.
Well, we all agree with you on that, Tom.
Right.
Yeah, we had quite a bit of discussion about that. Tom did a really good job of reorganizing, as we mentioned earlier. So some policies became procedures, versus vice versa. So here's that policy 10 we just talked about. You guys read that? Okay, I can make it bigger. The new paragraph about fundraising in policy 10. There are some changes to the updates to the document, but really more just editorial on how the document could be updated. This is the one we talked about, meeting notices and documents. We kind of combined meeting notices with how you need to be able to provide the documents for people to access before a meeting, which we do, and also keep them in the archives. So here we talked about the agenda changes, etc. So, and we're also talking about urgent meetings. We kind of restructured this a little bit. It had been, we talked about executive board meetings first and then went into membership meetings, but per suggestion from Chris Silkowski, we reordered that. Nothing actual substance on how you decide to set an urgent meeting, which we've had a few over the last couple of years. And then request to the NCAC, again, this was rewritten by Tom to be in English instead of 5 levels of bullet points like I like to do. So, so any of that kind of thing we had in black, but we added this paragraph about the financial side. That's about it. The brand new reconsiderations and rescissions that we went through, the brand new Oregon Public Meeting Law considerations, and social media. We've talked with Sarah about, we would like to be able to start communicating on social media, and understandably, the county wants to be really careful about that. Sarah wants to set something up with all the CACs in the county. So that'll be a future work, hopefully next year. So really, we added artificial intelligence to the meeting minutes. Procedure 4, you can see all the changes to procedure 4 on voting that came out of these bylaw changes. Goes through very, very detailed for the chairperson, the chair meeting chair on what they can do. And it's also a resource for members to know. Applications for NCAC positions, pretty short. We're looking in the future at having forms that people can use to fill out or templates. That would be a future quorum, what we do. So that's it for the procedures. And then here's the references section. So it starts with contact information. We're setting up email addresses for every executive board member. And that's a work in progress. Candace Miller, who has been just a force of nature on the communications task force, is working with each of the executive board members to set up their email addresses. And I've had one for the bylaws subcommittee since we started. It just makes it easy to be able to transfer as people change positions, to be able to change. People should be able to get to, say, the chair, NCAC chairperson at gmail.com, for example. One of the reasons that we have a policy about this, that we need to be using it, is that it's possible, we are told, that we could be subpoenaed for our records and our emails. And so by having them all separate, we wouldn't have to produce our personal email accounts. So I try to use the bylaws whenever I can. I don't always remember. We added the NCA information, thanks to Susan. And then Susan put together with Guy Sievert a lot of these different things that are part of the monitoring task force. Guy has been doing a lot of monitoring, and we're trying to find different people to take over some of this for him, from him. It's a lot of work, and to take a few of these monitoring things to come back and report. And we're also working on trying to have more speakers at our meetings. That a lot of them would come from those places. This is our famous map from 2.5 years ago, our area map. And this is the new neighborhoods of Nescoin map that Tom Stipe has put together. And it has grown, the number of neighborhoods that we've had. So, and Susan is also chairperson of the outreach task force. So she's trying to find representatives from each of these neighborhoods to be able to work with their respective neighborhoods on reaching out about matters of interest to the NCAC and to members. So if you have an interest, if you're in one of these neighborhoods and you have an interest in being one of these people on Susan's outreach task force, please contact Susan. Tom?
Or if you're in a neighborhood that's not represented, please let us know.
Yes, thank you. At info at. And then, as you can see, we've fleshed out a lot of the duties. The highlighted parts are, the bolded parts are in the bylaws. The rest of it is more detail. So lots more information on what the responsibilities are of the different groups. You can see in the secretary, we've added, ensure that the minutes are recorded. So these are the kind of things that are in the references section. This is some information on the Oregon Ethics Commission on conflict of interest and the honor system, that kind of thing. So any questions about the PP&R? Okay, I'm going to stop share on that. And then lastly, I'm just going to pull up, because we're getting real close to the meeting. I'm just going to show the bylaws real fast. Because we've had some confusion as we've gone along about the bylaws versus the PP&R. Also in your meeting folder is a document on the process that we're going to be going through in the meeting. Well, apparently I don't have them up. They're in your meeting folder, but let me go to that.
Hello, Chris.
Hey, good morning.
Hi, Chris. Okay. We can actually get into the meeting. Okay, just real fast. This is our bylaws. You can see they're different than they're shorter than the PP&R, the broader, but these are the rules we operate under. And you can see there's some here that's changed. The first secretary duty. And then the vacancies section we talked about. And then we have the voting changes here, the two different paragraphs of voting changes. So otherwise, there's no change to the bylaws. Everything else is the same. Okay. So any questions before Chris starts us up with our meeting? We've got 2 minutes, so I think we did pretty well.
You did very well, and I want to point out that although you've been complimenting people on their participation, your leadership has been instrumental in getting this done. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Tom. You're right on the mark.
Well, you guys are very kind. It's been a really fun group to work with. We've become quite a family, I think, over the years. So thank you. Okay, and I'm at this point, Chris, I think you'll be taking over as chair, and Alex Clark is traveling and wasn't able to chair, so Chris has graciously agreed to chair the meeting today.
Great. Well, good morning, everyone. Question for Michael or Nancy. The 15 that are required for a quorum, does that include the officers?
It
Yes,
does.
all
Okay.
voting people. Yeah.
Any member, including officers, yes.
Great.
And I'm seeing at the moment 15. So,
Perfect.
and I know we had close to 2022. And thank you. We have some comments in here. So thank you guys for your comments. So yeah, I think you're prepared to certify a quorum.
Okay, great. And I see that you've started the recording. Do we want to?
Maybe we should end this one and I'll start
Yeah.
the new one. Should we do that? So
I
I'm
think-
going to
I think-
end
I
the
think so.
recording at 10 and then we'll start the new one.
Okay, let me know once you've done that.